السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. أما بعد. قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كلامه المجيد: يا أيها الناس قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا. Dear brothers and sisters, the topic for today's talk is character defects, causes and cure. Before we start talking about the topic, let's first understand what the Holy Quran said about the ayah that I just recited. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Tahrim, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe, Qu anfusakum, save yourselves, wa ahlikum, and also your families, nara, from a fire. Wa quduha an-nas wal hijara, the fuel of which will be the people and the stones. So we don't know what kind of stones they would be on the day of judgment in the hellfire that would be burning. But we know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about, or rather who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about when He says, وَأَهْلِكُمْ أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِكُمْ نَارًا وَقُودُهَا النَّاسِ, the fuel of which, of that hellfire, will be us human beings, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. So there are ways of saving ourselves from that hellfire, inshallah ta'ala. While the ways that can be discussed in terms of saving ourselves from the hellfire can be pretty long and can be pretty detailed, but we are going to inshallah take a look at some of them which are of primary importance to us, inshallah ta'ala. And therefore, this talk of today is dedicated especially to those people who would like to bring about a change in the way they think, who would like to bring about a change in the way they approach life, in the way they do things, in the way they have brought themselves up, or in the way their parents have brought themselves up. So those people that are seeking that change now and that want to exhibit that change and be a part of a new society, be a part of that society that will have no character defects, is what the topic is, and the address is only and exclusively dedicated to such people, inshallah ta'ala. And when we talk about the life of human being, we very clearly know that the age starting from say 15, 14 and 16 years until about 35, 36, 37 and in some cases 40 years of life. When a child starts to grow, he goes through that teenage, he steps into that teenage the minute he is 13, the minute he is 14. He is into that teenage zone now, teenage phase now. Right from that part of the life until about when he is 35, 36 or 37. And in some cases, like I said, 40. These 20-25 years of life is very productive in a human being. The adrenaline is rushing, there is high adrenaline, and it's like this youth, this boy that is 15 years, 17 years, 20 years of age, he wants to move the entire world, he wants to move mountains. That's how passionate he is, and that's how exuberant he is, that he wants to change the way things work, that he wants to change the way life is lived. And if these people in this age group between 15 and 40, let's take that bracket, if these people are channeled correctly in that age group, then these people inshallah can be the reformers of the society. Look, for example, for the development of any society for that matter, the society always looks up to the youth. While of course at times it looks up to those that have a lot of experience and that are in their mid-50s or mid-60s, but predominantly society looks at the youth because they have the exuberance, they have that passion, they are rich in that passion and they want to utilize that passion. They want to channel that passion. So if that passion is given the right channel, given the right dimension, given the right direction, then that person or that youth can completely change the way things work. And Islam is no different from that. Islam also wants to look at, or rather look up to those youth that can change the way things look and that can change the way things work. For example now, about 25-30 years ago, who would have thought that we would be able to communicate with someone sitting in the US or with someone sitting in any other part of the world, in Europe, in Africa, wherever it is? Who would have thought, who would have given it a thought that yes, in this year we would have actually been talking to someone live, say on Skype or any such other portal. We are now able to talk. Who's brought that change? It's the youth. And when we talk about youth, there are also many Muslim people, who are a part of efficient functioning bodies of the organizations. You talk about Intel, you talk about Dell, you talk about this, you talk about that. All these companies have a lot of Muslim population, Muslim youth that are a part of efficient functioning body. That goes to show that today's Muslim youth is not lacking in talent. He is sufficiently talented to be able to bring about that change. Take a case of travel. Who would have thought that about, who would have thought about 25 years ago, 30 years ago that travel would be so comforting? There was a time when people would always think twice, think thrice, or sometimes think 10 times before taking up one journey from one place to another, because the journey is tedious, the journey is laborious, the journey is very dreadful. People wouldn't have actually thought about taking up a journey, and now a journey is so comforting. What is the involvement of the percentage of the youth here? It is once again the youth that have completely changed, overhauled as to how travel can be looked at, or how travel can be incorporated. So, the point that I'm trying to make here is that it is the youth that has the exuberance, that has passion, and that has what it is needed to be able to change the world completely. And if the youth is defected, if the youth is not on the right path, like I said, if the youth is given the right direction, the right dimension, then the youth will bring about that change. If the youth is not on the right path, if the youth is not himself guided, then look at the catastrophe that the youth can bring about to the society, or for that matter to any religion. And that's the same kind of catastrophe the religion of Islam is going through. Let's take an example of a telemarketing, or rather a marketing agency. Let's take that example. When we have a big firm and the firm is efficiently running, you will know that the force, one of the forces rather behind that company's efficient running is its proper marketing. If the marketing is not proper, if the marketing is not planned properly, if the strategies are not decided properly, if the marketing executives are not trained properly, what is going to happen to that company? The company is going to shut down in no time, and we don't require a rocket scientist to come and tell us this. The company can efficiently function only when you have supreme and extraordinary marketing. And a shrewd marketer, or an engineer who is a shrewd marketing engineer, will clearly tell you that in order for us to be able to sustain and live healthily at the top of that pyramid, in terms of being in the world, in terms of existing in the world of competition, you will have to have that strategy correctly. And if the strategy, if the planning is not good, then execution is going to fail. And no matter how many times you keep changing those marketing executives, your strategy is wrong, your training is wrong, your management is wrong. Because of all that, the company is going to suffer. That's the same thing happening with Islam. With Islam, as far as we Muslims are concerned, there is no planning. We don't know what Islam is. We don't know how Islam is supposed to be presented into the media, into the world. There is no strategy. We have no clue what strategy actually means as far as Islam's propagation is concerned, Islam's spreading is concerned. At the same time, we have no clue. We have no clue about how to talk to non-Muslims about Islam. That's the catastrophe that we are also going through. And as a result of this now, If we try to dissect this problem, that yes, Islam is going through this catastrophe, Islam is going through this lean, or rather the leanest phase. Islam had never been so low ever before in the last 1400 years or so. Islam had never been so low. So when we want to talk about this, let's go back to the topic that we had actually started the talk about. We said character defects. What does character mean? The dictionary, any dictionary when we go to, that dictionary will give us the definition that a quality or a combination of qualities in a person that can differentiate him from others, that can make him look different from others. That's what is called character. And now let's take a look at the other word, defect. What does the word defect mean? The word very clearly once again says that, and once again we could go back to any dictionary and that dictionary will have that rough definition, loose definition of what I'm going to talk about, what I'm saying. Defect means a flaw, a fault, or a problem in a person, also at times in something. But we are talking about people, we are talking about stones, so let's stick to what we are talking about. Defect means a problem, a fault, or a flaw in a person. As a result of that, it causes that person to get spoiled. And thereby, it allows that person to work incorrectly. That's why character defects. When we look at the word together now, character defects, how can we come up with the definition? What the definition would be is, a person who does not have real good characteristics and also has certain flaws in himself. As a result of these, he is not able to execute the task he is entrusted upon correctly. He is not able to function or work efficiently or correctly at all. So this is what character defect means. And we have a lot of character defects. It's not just one thing that we are wrong at. It's not just one thing that we have a problem with. The problem starts the minute a baby is born, and the problem continues to go on until that baby grows old, dies when he is 60, 70, 80. That problem goes on, and that cycle repeats itself. Every time a baby is born, every time a child is born, and then he grows into an adult, he goes down to being being a man, being an old man, and then dies. There is nothing. And how distinct are we? How different are we? Like I said, character actually means some qualities in a person that should make him stand out from the others. How different are we from non-Muslims? Are we different in any way? The way we look, the way we dress, the way we talk, the way we conduct, the way we eat, the way we believe. How different are we from them? This is what I'm talking about when I say character defect. A problem within our characters. So let's start to slowly dissect and find out what these problems are, what these areas are in which we have got a lot of problems, and let's see if we can find some solutions, because every time any speaker stands to deliver a lecture, a talk, or a sermon in any language for that matter, the only purpose of that talk in general, you may have some exceptions here and there, but in general, a person, when he stands to talk on any Islamic tenet, any Islamic thing, the only thing that he is telling the audience is to come back to the Holy Quran and come back to the Sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the epitome, and that's the bottom line, or that's the central point or the focal point of that message. So we once again will have to, even if I don't give any solutions at the end of this, the solution lies in the simple statement that I made, that we have to go back to the Holy Quran and go back to the way the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam lived his life and also taught us to live our lives. If we could go back to doing that, inshallah ta'ala, the character defects that we have, that we are possibly going to dissect some of them, inshallah, we can slowly start fixing them, inshallah ta'ala. And when I talked about that example that I gave a little while ago about a telemarketing company, or rather a marketing company, I don't know why I'm saying telemarketing, a marketing agency. We know that if the marketing agency has got bad planning, if the marketing agency has got bad management, if the marketing agency has got bad strategies, no matter how efficiently you try training the individuals that are going to be the first points of contact with the consumers, I'm talking about the marketing executives. No matter how you train them, because the planning is bad, because the strategies are bad, They are going to fail, and you continue to change those executives every now and then. You take a look at every quarter's results and you say that, oh my God, the results are baffling. The results are very poor. I think I need to completely change the lowest stratum called the marketing executives. We change that. And let's bring in another set of marketing executives. Let's give them that training. If there is a problem in the training, if there is a problem in the policies, if there is a problem in the management, if there is a problem in the strategies, all that is going to be useless. Likewise, more or less the same way, when we start dissecting the problem in terms of character defects, we come with two things. You know, when something is dissected, you have two parts to it in general. In general, anything is dissected, we have two parts to that. One is attached to the other, and we have dissected it, that's why it becomes two. And now, those two parts that I'm going to talk about are parents, children. On one hand, we have parents that are solely responsible, and let's not hesitate calling a spade a spade. Enough time has gone, and we have not called a spade a spade. You know, in order to bring that change in the attitude of each one of us, in the approach to life of each one of us, we have to take that bold step of calling ourselves the enemies of Islam. Because we are the enemies of Islam. We are not the well-wishers of Islam, are we? While, you know, technically we might still be called as, yes, you are the well-wisher of Islam because you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you believe in the messenger, you believe in the day of judgment, you believe in the books Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed and what not. That's why technically you are given that certificate. Each one of us is given that certificate. Yes, we are Muslims. But when we dissect that problem, there are a lot of problems. When we open that ball and then tear it apart, dissect it, we know that there are a lot of problems. And we are going to look at the problems of each kind. So the first of the problems that we have is in the upbringing of our children. And I'm addressing the parents here, because I myself am a parent. Of course, I had been a boy, like you had been a boy some time ago. I also had been a boy. So the problem lies within us as to how we upbring those children. Do we really pay attention to the upbringing of the kids that we have now? You know, most of the parents today think that my job as a parent, or as a Muslim parent, let's add that another adjective there. My job as a Muslim parent is over the minute I have secured admission of my boy, my child, in an Islamic school. I'm done. I don't have anything else to do. I have given him the best of the education in the best of the Islamic schools in the town, or maybe in another town. And we remain so aloof from then on, that the male parent, dad, is especially busy in trying to gather in trying to accumulate in trying to obtain the benefits of the world, in trying to gather as much wealth as he can, and he doesn't have time to go back to his child. That's the fundamental problem. While it appears to be a common case, you know, everyone does it, so am I. That's the attitude we have. You know, my neighborhood, they also send the parents, the children to the same school. I am not different from them. I also have got 2 ears and 2 eyes and this and that, so why should I start thinking differently? Islam tells us to think differently. And we think that the minute I have admitted or secured admissions of my child in an Islamic school, my duties as a parent are over. Likewise, the mom also thinks. While the dad is busy in the office, in the meetings, maybe in the parties outside, or maybe, you know, watching news, be it in the office or outside office, maybe in the house, while he is busy doing a lot of things to maybe, you know, help himself be a better oriented man in terms of how the world is. He wants to watch news just in order to stay abreast of what's happening in the world. He wants to watch the local news, he wants to watch the national news, he wants to watch the international news, and go ask him, why are you wasting time watching all this? He says, I want to keep myself abreast. As though, you know, the Prime Minister of either this country or another country is waiting for a decision making to be done by consulting him. That's how important we think our lives are as far as news watching is concerned. And women, they want to watch, while the man is gone, they want to sit and watch TV soaps. While the kid has gone to school, We want to watch TV soaps, and if there is a problem with the connection that we have at home, the set-top box connection that we have at home, we would like to call our friends, our neighbors, and who not. We want to find out the development that took place that night because we missed that one single episode of that serial, of that soap. That's the main agenda, that's the main motto, that's the main purpose of our life. We want to prepare the best of delicacies. As women, we want to prepare the best of delicacies in the kitchen, and we have no time for that ward, for those children to give. The children come home, we turn the television on for them. We are least bothered about what they are watching on television. We don't really want to find out what's happening on television. And because we are ourselves so busy. Like I said, the dad is busy outside in the outside world. The mom here is busy, maybe doing something else. These days the new disease, if I should call it, WhatsApp. Everyone is busy on WhatsApp. I'm told that there is a group on WhatsApp that is dedicated to only talking about what to be prepared, the delicacies. And if you talk about anything else on that particular group, you are thrown out of that group. The least that they do is they tell you, they warn you, is this a group to talk about Islam and Islamic things? This is a group to talk about delicacies. So please stay out of this if you are going to talk about something about Islam. Is that how we are supposed to live? And if we have values like these, then what are we expecting from our children? I'm also told by a parent that we have those open houses conducted by the school teachers and by the school staff. There was one parent that was telling me just a few days ago that her parent, both mom and dad, visited individually, again separately, visited throughout their 10 years of schooling. Dad visited the open house once and mom visited the open house once. So we are least bothered about what is happening with the development of the child, with his mind, with the development of his mind. We are least bothered about it. And to top it all, to make matters worse, if a child picks up a habit, if a child does something wrong, we are the first to scold him, we are the first to maybe punish him. Has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to punish the kids like this? We beat him left, right and center. Is that how we are supposed to bring up our children? Are we so smart that we think that we can only win fights with such young boys and girls who are of perhaps 4 years of age, 5 years of age, 10 years of age, and they don't raise back their hands at us purely because they respect us? And we think that that child has picked up a habit from the school or from his colleagues. Do we realize that there is something called DNA? That habit is there in each one of us. He may have picked up that habit from our DNA because it was inherent in him. Do we realize that? Or maybe do we at least realize that he must have actually picked up that particular word, a curse word or a bad word, an F&B, food and beverage word? Do we think that he must have or he may have picked up that word perhaps because I may have used it over the phone the other day when he was perhaps not watching me and I thought he wasn't watching me, and I was yelling at someone, I was scolding someone, I was having an argument with someone over the phone, and I used such words and he picked it up, and I think I don't realize that he actually picked that habit or picked that word up from me. I think he's picked it up from someone else from outside, and we are ready to blame the outside word. Is this called upbringing the children? Isn't there a point of thinking of deep pondering for us? Are we going to continue to remain and continue to treat our children just the way we have been treated by our parents? Is that the only way? Doesn't Islam teach us that there is a superficial way, there is a great way of bringing the children up? Do we even think about those things? We don't. That's why the problem lies. When this child grows up and he tries to be like us. And the problem that we have with us is that while we are those parents, while the child is young, we do not want to set examples of how a Muslim has to behave, how a Muslim has to be. And when he grows up, when he is in his adolescence age, and when we are 40, 45, 50, we want him to be the Islamic child. We want him to represent Islam, while in our those heydays, we were not we were not as pious Muslims as we were supposed to be, as we are possibly dictating him to be. When we grow old, when we are 50, 45, 55, we want to have that beard. Now we are wearing those jubbas and pajamas and our pants are lying above the ankle and we are going to the prayers every day, nearly every prayer, and we want to call that child to come and pray with us. And when he doesn't come, we are ready to shoot him, we are ready to fire him. Did we go back and pray when we were young, when we were maybe 20, 25, 30? Is it not the time that we started changing that thing right now? If every single parent, male parent I'm talking about, has beard, how do you think, and how is it possible for that boy when he grows up to not have beard? What chances do we give them? No chance at all, because the minute that child is born, he sees dad with this beard. And how, he is not going to be able to shave his beard off because he sees his dad as an example. And that's what I'm talking about. We have to set precedents. We have to set examples that yes, we are the parents and we are the best Muslims that we can be. And then we can expect our children to behave the way Muslims behave. That's the fundamental problem. While we are game in terms of accumulating wealth, as much wealth as possible, when it comes to behaving like Muslims, no, we are so, in fact our feet develop cold. And we catch cold rather. And we are like, no, I can't do this, I can't do that because I have got a meeting, because I have got to go meet a friend, because I have got a dinner party, or this or that. I can't come for namaz. And the best solution lies in teaching children the Islamic values while we follow those Islamic values. And if we don't follow those Islamic values, the children will grow up to be someone else, will grow up to be like us. Like I said, it's there in the DNA. We did that, he does that. And there is an old saying that Ma shabahu abahu fama zalama. If a child is like his dad, or rather if a child is bad like his dad, then he is not bad. Right? If a child is bad because his dad was bad, you cannot call him bad because you were bad yourself. I was bad myself. And how can I call my child bad? So that's the fundamental problem that we have, that we are not sufficiently keen in the upbringing of our children. That's the fundamental problem. And the solution, like I said, lies in us following what the Quran says, being an example, and trying to tell the children to follow what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says and what the Islam says. Let me talk to you about a story. In the caliphate of the second caliph, Umar radiallahu anhu, a man came to Umar radiallahu anhu and started complaining rather about his son. That my son doesn't behave, my son doesn't really obey me, he is the most disobedient child in the family or in the area or in the vicinity. What do I do then? Umar radiallahu anhu summons that boy. He comes. Now Umar radiallahu anhu gives him a small talk, gives him a piece of advice and tells him how important it is to obey parents and how dangerous it is in terms of the punishment in the hellfire to not obey parents. If you're disobeying your parents, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gets upset, how much Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gets upset with such boys when they grow up and continue to misbehave, continue to disobey, and hellfire is waiting for them. When Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu gives him this piece of advice, this boy asks Umar radiallahu anhu, "Oh Amirul Mu'mineen, may I ask you a question?" Umar radiallahu anhu says, "Yes, please." And he says, "Doesn't a parent have any rights over his children?" Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu says, "Yes, he also has." Then this boy asks, "Can you please tell me what those rights are that a parent has to execute, the duties that a parent has to do towards his children? Can you please tell me that if you don't mind?" Then Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu starts talking about them. The first thing Umar radiallahu anhu says that it is obligatory for that man to choose the right woman, choose a good woman, meaning choose a good Muslim woman, a pious woman. That's the bottom line. He has to find a pious woman so that pious children can be born from that womb. And then the second piece of advice Umar radiallahu anhu gives is that the parent should give him nice names, Islamic names. so that the effect of those names starts to reflect on the character. And the third thing Umar radiallahu anhu says, that the dad must teach his children Quranic education. And then this boy is puzzled. He says, Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, can I please tell you something? Umar radiallahu anhu says, yes, go ahead. And he says, my dad did none of these three with me. He is married to someone who is a Zoroastrian, who is not on Islam. He is married to someone who lived under the care of a Zoroastrian. And he gave me a name. My name doesn't mean anything nice. My name means someone who's got that, who doesn't have a sharp, who doesn't have a good nose, who has got this, we call that in Hindi as nakta. My dad gave me a name which means this. And another meaning of my name is someone who looks ugly. Another meaning of my name is that someone who's stubborn. Another meaning of my name is that someone who always argues and fights. So my dad has not given me a good name. And you said about Quran, my dad has not taught me even one letter from the Holy Quran, leave alone teaching me the education of the Holy Quran. He has not even taught me one letter from it. Umar radiallahu ta'ala now turns to this man and says, even before you become a complainant, even before you start talking about the complaints of your child, you yourself are a perpetrator. You yourself are a sinner. So when you have faults like these in you, how can you complain about a young boy like yours? So, it clearly goes to show that we need to have those women that we think can be pious. And there is an ideology, there is an ideology in the modern day society that let me marry someone who is not really very pious. I will teach her education, I will give her the Islamic values. The first fundamental Islamic value is that get someone who is Islamic. Only someone who is not very Islamic in general, I am saying only someone who is not very Islamic tells things like these, that I will marry someone who is not so Islamic, so that I can bring him on the righteous path, and I can bring him on the bring her on the straight path. These are finding excuses, and these excuses are not very extraordinary. Everyone has been giving these excuses, and we have thousands of people that have lived life this way. They wanted to marry someone who is not really a pious Muslim, and they have ended their life in misery. Even at the end of their life, they were repenting with the decision they made, that I wish I had gotten married about 20 years ago, 30 years ago. When I got married, I wish I had married a pious woman. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, let's give our children nice names. Instead of giving names after celebrities, there are so many Salmans and Amirs now. Instead of giving names we are going to expect them to become celebrities tomorrow. Are they our role models? Those that dance around with women who have no business with them, and those who can do anything for the sake of a few dollars of money. They can enact any scene just for the sake of just a few dollars. And if we have such values, how can we expect our children to be the torchbearers of Islam tomorrow? So that's the fundamental problem. And like the third problem, that the third advice that Umar radiallahu anhu gave was giving Islamic education, giving Quranic education. Do we give Quranic education? At the most, what we do? We hire a tutor. We don't really find out how the tutor is. We don't really find out how the conduct of the tutor is, what the manhaj of the tutor is. We just hire a tutor. He comes and teaches. While he is teaching, we are not even there with the teacher, with the student, with that boy, even once in the entire life cycle. We don't even find out what's happening with that boy. Some people, as a result of that, get to finish the Holy Quran while they are in their teens. Is that the message? Is that the kind of treatment we are supposed to give our children? And the fourth thing that I would like to include here is, those three things are having the right wife. The second thing is giving right names. Third thing is to have the best of education in the form of Islam. And the fourth thing that I think I would like to talk about here is being an example of a righteous Muslim. If we can be an example of a righteous Muslim, like I said, while we think that children pick up a lot of habits at school, they don't. We are sadly mistaken. If we go back to our own children, we would realize, there was a time, because of an accident, there was a problem in my leg, there was a complete tear of my ligament. And as a result of that, I was not able to sit in the sujood, sit in the qu'ud. When we sit in the tashahud, I was not able to sit properly. I was sitting slightly, because of that discomfort, slightly differently. And I never realized that my child actually picked it up. And he thought that that was the right way of sitting, until I went, I saw that he was doing that, and I had to tell him, no, I sit like this because of a problem in my leg. That's not the right way. If a child can pick up such a small thing, how many children notice us? For example, how many children notice us while we are sitting in tashahhud? Not many. We think not many. But the fact of the matter is that everything, we think that they are not really watching us, they are watching us. It all is getting registered in their brains and their minds. And we seem to be careless about that. So everything we do has some meaning, has some value. Therefore, we have to keep ourselves in check. If we want to create the future, the Islamic future for our children. If that's not there, then I think we should forget that we are Muslims. We are as good as anyone else who's not a Muslim. That's the fundamental problem. And the second problem is lack of surveillance, lack of supervision. Like I said a little while ago, I gave a brief glimmer of that. We have no clue what the children is watching on television. And most of these channels, while we think, back in our days, 25, 35, 40, 50 years ago, in the first place, there was not as much of television back then. We only had about an hour of television one day. Throughout that day, the television would not run in the first place. There would be no programs. You turn the television on, you will have those Vibgyor lights, nothing else. But now, with the influx of hundreds of channels, we have no idea what our children are watching. And if we sit for one single episode with our children, with the intention of teaching them the Islamic values, the second minute, the second time, we will have that television connection, we will have that set-top box connection disconnected. Because that's what is being taught. We think that it's just a cat and mouse game, Mickey Mouse that they're watching. No, it's not just that. It's way, way, way beyond. They are teaching immoralities. Young boys and girls learn how to start interacting with girls, with boys and girls of opposite sex. And when these values are nurtured in them right at such a young age, how different are they going to be when they grow up? There is an old saying again by one of the esteemed scholars, I forgot the name of that scholar, Talabul Hadithi fi Sughri kan Naqshi fil Hajar. Giving the Hadith ilm, the ilm of Hadith, meaning the Islamic knowledge, Islamic education. Giving the Islamic education to a child in his childhood is like carving something on a stone. And if we don't carve things that are nice, things that are Islamic, we can't expect them to be scientists of Islam tomorrow. That's the fundamental problem. And these are young boys, of course, these are young kids, of course. We have no idea where our child is going. When our child says that he is going to go out and study, maybe at his friend's house, we have no idea where he is going. And these children go out, I'm talking about the teenagers now. They go out, sit right in front of those malls. They go out somewhere in the cubicles and doing that dirtiest act of adultery or fornication is not very difficult these days. People lose, young boys and girls of the age of 13, 14, 15, 16 lose virginity just like that with the flick of the finger. They think this is all experimentation. In order to try to find the right partner, we need to go through this process. Every one of us, every one of our friends is going through this. My classmates are going through this. So this is all common is what they think. On the contrary, if someone has not lost virginity, he is called a loser. What kind of Islamic values are we giving them? Let me talk to you about another incident. There was one boy, and this is a true incident. I'm not joking here. We can find references, inshallah, about this incident. There was one boy in a small town. I don't know how many years ago that story took place, about 50 years ago, 70 years ago, I don't know. There was a remote village there was this madrasa running, and in that madrasa, people, the management of that madrasa did not have any mess for the children to be given food. So what happened back then was, what used to happen rather back then was, the boys that came to that madrasa would live there, but for the food they would go out in the village, and every villager, every household would take responsibility of one child at least. So this child would come to my house to eat his breakfast, lunch, dinner, or maybe 2 times a day. Another child would go to this family, this house, eat his dinner, breakfast and lunch. Likewise, every family, every household got one boy. And what happened then was, there was one boy that constantly kept visiting this particular house, because the household, the family had taken the responsibility of providing him food every day. And he used to go there every day. They used to open the door, welcome him, feed him. When he would finish his food, he would wash his hands and go back. This used to happen every day. One day, both the parents had gone out somewhere, maybe to another city or maybe for a marriage somewhere. And what was happening back then was, there was one girl in that house. One girl, maybe 13, 14, 15 years of age. One girl used to live with those parents. She was the daughter of those parents. So she used to live with them, and she had a kind of affection, she had a kind of infatuation, if you want to call it, or love you want to call it. She had developed that feeling for that boy, because that boy was very pious. So when the parents had gone out, this boy had no idea that there was no one else at home except that girl. He knocked on the door as usual. She opened the door. That lady, young girl in fact, opened the door and closed the door from inside. He developed suspicion, why is she closing the door? And then she said, you know what, you'll have to do this act with me, otherwise I'm going to shout that you're trying to molest me, trying to rape me. And this boy was like, oh my God, what kind of situation, what kind of problem I am in? He said, this is not good. This is not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us. He tried giving her a lot of advice, a lot of counseling. She said, no. Either you are going to do what I am saying, or I am going to shout and call a lot of people from the village and tell them that you are a perpetrator. I am going to call everyone, I am going to shout and call everyone to ensure that you are caught. And I am going to tell them that you are trying to molest me, you are trying to rape me. And this boy is in a fix now. What is he supposed to do now? He said, can you give me 2 minutes? I need to use the washroom and come back. And after that, I am yours. She said, yeah, please go upstairs. There is that washroom there. Go use that and come back. And she was waiting. Can we think for a moment before I tell you what happened next? What would you and I have done? We would have given in. There is no way out. We would think perhaps sitting in the washroom for about 5, 10, 15, 20, half an hour. And we would think, no, there is no way out. I can't break the wall. I can't go out. I can't shout for her because this girl saying that she will call and get me arrested. So I think that's the only way left for me is to do that dirty act and get out once again, and maybe do tawbah and not repeat that and not go to that house again. That's perhaps the solution that we have. Can we imagine what this boy did? He went to the washroom. He took that defecate. After having defecated, he used that defecate to spread it, the paste, to spread it all over his body, including his face. And now he was stinking. This boy now came in front of this girl and said, yes, you wanted me to do something, I'm ready. She said, oh my God, what kind of animal are you? I never thought that I was falling in love with a man like this, with a boy like this. Get the hell out of here. She sent him out. And then, back then there were no geysers, there were no heaters. This boy went to his madrasa. And he had to bathe, he had to take a shower. He took a shower with cold water. Minutes later he died. I have no, I'm so emotional at the moment that I don't know how I should put forth the next part of the story. He died a very few minutes later. And the organizers of that madrasa, the ulama, came forward and tried finding out what happened. They somehow got to know that this had happened about 2 days, 3 days ago, or maybe the next day, after they had buried him. They got to know. They went back to that grave once again, about a day later or so. Would you believe what happened with that grave? It was fragrance that was coming out of that grave. And this is not a joke. I can give you references of what this story, where this story is given in the books. That grave was smelling with full of fragrance. Can anyone of us do something like that? In fact, we want to. That's why rapes are increasing in India. And like I said a little while ago, right at the start of my talk, I said that a shrewd marketing agency will tell you how to market your product and when to market your product. And once again, it does not require any rocket scientist to tell us when best marketing and best results can be achieved. When we have huge demand, acute demand, and there is meager supply, so to say there is no supply, you go and market your product is going to sell worth $1 million. That's how valuable, rather invaluable your product becomes. Why? Because there is acute demand. Everyone wants that product and there is no one that's supplying that. The same way, everyone in the world is going through torment. Everyone in the world is going through unrest. Everyone in the world is looking for peace, looking for salvation, peace of mind. There is this disease, newfound disease called depression. Everyone's going through this. And Islam has solutions for it. This is the best time for us to market Islam. And if we follow the Islam the way we are following at the moment, and if our children follow the Islam the way we are helping them follow, we are bringing them up, no. I think we are sadly mistaken. We cannot market Islam the way the image of Islam at the moment is. Someone has to take up the responsibility of changing that image, or maybe dusting the sculptor that image, the image that Islam has built. So that's the second problem that I thought I would talk about. So the solution for that problem is, like I said, lack of surveillance and lack of supervision. The best thing that we could do is simple. All these things are mentioned either in the Holy Quran or in the Sunnah, Ahadith, or in the lives of some of the companions. Everything lies right there. If we could start spending 5 to 10 minutes a day with that young boy or girl that we call our child, if we could start finding out the problems that she has, or the problems that she is facing at school, at home, with garments that she is wearing, he is wearing, all the problems will be resolved. Most children tend to fix their problems on their own because no parent goes and addresses those problems. No parent goes and fixes those problems. They try fixing them themselves. And we yell at them. Who told you to fix it like this? We yell at them. Have we given them the way to fix the problems? No. Then how can we scold them? How can we yell at them? I don't know the entire, Islam is so big. Islam is so vast that it is very difficult for anyone to learn the complete Islam. So everyone tries to understand and follow Islam in their own capacities. I have not come across from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam any place where the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has told parents to beat children except for Salah. Do we beat them for Salah? I'm talking about 12 years old, 15 years old, 7. Do we do that? No. Who do we beat them? Who do we beat and what do we beat them for? Everything else. Is it mentioned in the Holy Quran? Is it mentioned in the Hadith to beat them? We are here to teach by being examples of those manners. Manners are not brought about just like that. It's not a genie. So there are a lot of things that we need to do. Like I said, the first one of them is to maybe spend 5 minutes with one child. Maybe 1-to-1 is even better. If we have 3-4 children, just spend 5 minutes with one child, take him in isolation, take him maybe out somewhere. Spend 5, maybe in the car. While you're going in the car, you're driving. When we drive, we talk to everyone that's around us in the car. Why can't we talk to that boy? Ask him what problems he has. He will definitely tell you the problems he has. And believe me, his problems will be so small, I don't want to use some of the bad words here. His problems would be so silly. You can fix them in a jiffy. And we don't want to pay attention to that at all. He fixes them himself. And the second thing that we could do is play with those kids on the weekends at least, about half an hour, 1 hour. Spend time with them on the weekends if we can't find time on the weekdays. Look, the world will still go on even if we don't watch news, local news, national news, international news. The world will still go on. All you have to do is perhaps have an app. If you're using an Android, have an app, and that app will tell you the developments of the entire world. You don't really have to go through in detail about what is said by who said what. We just have to keep ourselves in the know-how of what's happening around us. And an app like that is more than sufficient for us. And something else that we can do is handle kids with care. They are young boys, they are young girls, they can't retaliate, they can't hit us back, they don't have energy. And we are trying to be restless in front of them. Is that what Islam teaches us? To be restless in front of them and to give them a bash in such a way that they go like a football from here and there. Is that what Islam teaches us? We need to handle them with care. And we generally give severest punishments to young boys like 10 years, 5 years, 7 years old. And if we can, let's look at it this way. If we give a 10-year-old a punishment of this kind, which is the severest punishment, what kind of punishment are you going to give him when he is 20, when he is 25? Because you have used the severest punishment right here when he is 5, 7 years old. Just create fear in them. Create that respect in them. If we could do that, they will automatically be on the right path. And like I said, everything can take a back seat. If we can follow Islam correctly, we don't really have to do anything. They will follow us. If we waste time watching anything, they will also waste time. And we don't even have anything to, we don't even have any face value to go tell them, don't do this. Because we ourselves are doing that. That's the second problem and the solution to it. And the third problem is unlawful income. How many of us think what unlawful income is? For us, unlawful income is maybe grabbing someone's land. If I have grabbed someone's land, then yes, I'm in a big fix, I shouldn't have done this. So, I'm keeping myself away from grabbing someone else's land incorrectly. Then I'm a pious man. I don't really have to worry about anything. And for some of us, taking bribe, giving bribe, that is the biggest unlawful way of income. Least we realize, least we understand that usury, eating interest, and maybe, our office times are say about 8 hours a day. When we know that the boss is not around, we go at the 7th hour, not at the 1st hour. We know that the boss is not around. And we take benefit because the boss is not around. No one's going to look if I'm there in the office or not. When the boss calls me, I can pretend to be in an office. I can pretend to have that silence somewhere, go somewhere and speak with the boss as though I'm speaking from the office. This is also unlawful income. Do we realize that? We are supposed to give 8 hours of productivity to the office, and when we go to the office, we don't really give that productivity. We don't really spend time doing things that the office expects us to do. We sit and chat with our friends and colleagues. And we think we are fine. We think, I'm not, my income is completely lawful. And there are many minute things like these. We don't have sufficient time here to talk about such minute things. In Hindi there is a kahavat, there is a saying in Hindi, "Aqal man ko ishara kafi hai." If we could just point out 1 or 2 things, and if we are wise enough, we will take a lead from there, we will take a cue from there. So that's another important thing, unlawful income. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, "Kulu minat tayyibat." Eat from the halal, meaning have halal sources of income. وَعْمَلُوا صَالِحًا. The ayat does not end there. Eat that, at the same time, وَعْمَلُوا صَالِحًا, do righteous deeds. So there is a great link between what we eat and what we do. If we eat something wrong, we will not have sufficient energy, sufficient motivation to do something right. And we will use that money in all kinds of wrong things. We will end up using that money in all kinds of wrong things. At the same time, there are many sayings in the Hadith and the Quran that prayers of such people, du'as of such people, supplications of such people who eat haram will not be accepted. A clear solution here, that put a full stop to any kind of unlawful income, inshallah we will start flourishing one day, and very soon. So that's the third problem. The fourth problem with us is that we curse our children very badly. I don't want to use some of those words here that we use in our everyday life. Every time a child does something wrong, we have some of those in Hindi or Urdu, some of those bad words that we use. Why can't we use Hadakallah? Why can't we use Aslahakallah? May Allah give you hidayah. May Allah correct your behavior. Why can't we do that? We go ahead and curse them. And at many occasions, like in Hindi we say, we give them badduas. And there are many instances and recorded instances of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ saying that do not make baddua, do not make duas like those, not just to yourselves, not just to your wealth, also to your children, because there are times when every dua that you make, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts it. And we have said something, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted it, that boy becomes someone else. That boy becomes a villain tomorrow of the society. And we are wondering who made him a villain. Gentlemen, you made that dua the other day. Do you realize that? Do we have that common sense that no, we should... Instead, like I said, we should use some of the best words given in the lives of the companions. Likewise, I said, there are many other problems. Ignorance is one of them. Insufficient love by parents is another of them. And there are many like that. I don't think I have sufficient time to talk about all that at the moment. Therefore, I urge each one of you sitting here and anyone watching this video to ensure that we bring that change first in ourselves. We try to be better Muslims. As a result of that, we are minimizing the defects that we have in our characters. And when we can cure some of those defects that we have, inshallah, we can be a better human being. We can be a better Muslim. And if each one of us does that, tomorrow we can be a better society. Otherwise, I'm an ordinary man. Many bigger ulamas would come, give sermons, give talks like these and go, and we will never change. In general, the analysis of a speaker is done about how he is spoken, how nice was he while he was speaking. We least take a lesson from what he said. We generally say, this lesson is, this lecture, this talk is really good because this man spoke on this and this and this, and while he was speaking, he was so fluent, he was so this and he was so that. The bottom line, that the fact of the matter is that we should actually take a lesson from what he said, no matter how he said it. So inshallah, let's hope that we become the start point of that change that the society needs, because Islam needs us at the most. If Islam needed any one of us ever in the history of Islam, it is this time that Islam needs us. Because everyone out there, like those bad marketing executives and bad marketing agencies, if you are doing bad, there are your competitors that are always attacking you and maligning you. No, don't buy products from them because they are bad, they are corrupt, their image is spoiled in the society, in the market, they don't have any value. They are a bankrupt company, they are going down, they are shutting their business, don't buy, they will not give you service after sales. All this, the competitors are saying. Likewise, we have the enemies of Islam saying a lot of things about Islam. Yeah? As a result of that, someone who drinks alcohol, someone who goes partying is considered a fashionable guy. And on the contrary, someone who does not do all this is considered an ignorant. Upside down. So let's bring that change right from here, inshallah ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us become better Muslims this way. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.